Well, hello. This is going to be the presentation for the final project associated with the PAD 502 Organization Dynamics. Today we're going to be talking about the community economic development and organization dynamics of a project to where there's a property and we're looking to whether we're going to purchase that property or not. Let's begin. So the question, and really what we're going to be trying to go through with this whole presentation, is going to be whether we are going to buy or not to buy a project. That strategic property acquisition question, that's what we're going to be answering today. So let's go through that. And we can add all the humor we want into it about to buy or not to buy and how we deal with this question. But in essence, what we're talking about is one property and whether as a community it is intelligent for us to purchase that property or not. The property in question we're going to be talking about is 411 North Roosevelt. We're going to tell you a story. I'm going to be telling you a story around this property, and then I'll show you how it ties into the overall goals and concepts from the class PAD 502, Organization Dynamics. The property itself was built in 1930. It does have a full basement. It is assessed at $58,000. It is approximately $10,000 to demolish. It actually has been upgraded in some different ways. It's on the near west side of downtown Bloomington. And so again, strategically located along a major road in Bloomington. And so it does have some good properties associated with it. So I'll give you a little bit better perspective about where it's at. This is Business 51 in the community of Bloomington Normal. This is the Market Street Garage. In this area is downtown Bloomington. So whenever the city tries to think about what types of properties it wants to have on its books, this is part of what we have to consider. So this is the 411 North Roosevelt, and here is Market Street. And so this is the Market Street Garage. And so this is how this property ties into the overall downtown. Let me back up, blow this up a little bit. This block you were just looking at, if we were to go back, this block right here is this block on the map. And so this piece is going to tie into the much larger downtown strategic plan that Bloomington has assessed. We'll talk about that in a minute. In the meantime, what you're looking at is the 411 North Roosevelt Avenue, and that it is owned by Tyler and Perry Lovers. What's key is that there are other properties right in this vicinity owned by the city of Bloomington already, and there are about 45% of the property is owned, the remainder of the property is owned by another single property owner, stakeholder in the community, interested in larger unloading of the property as part of a better plan for downtown Bloomington. So this is how this whole block ties into the downtown properties. I wanted to show you a sheet out of the you can't see this, Bloomington Downtown Strategy. And so what this is this was a larger plan done back in 2013, and in 2013 is whenever our council considered this. And so it wasn't that many years ago. This is the downtown Bloomington that we're talking about. And so here is the Market Street Garage that I pointed out earlier. Here is the block under consideration. And so this property is right here at this corner, and that's what we're talking about through this presentation. So this property ties in directly to a strategic master plan for the city of Bloomington that we paid for, we want to accomplish theoretically. So therefore, how do we look at buying that property or not? It became available. They were looking at selling it. So the city had to consider whether to buy it or not. Let's zoom in a little bit on this property. This being the Market Street Garage, again, like we talked about, this being the other block. When we talk about existing parking garage, this is what we're meaning. Now, out of that downtown strategic plan for Bloomington, this parking garage goes away. This is an older parking garage. It's one that is kind of reached its useful life, and so you have to think about what that property will be used for in the future. There's been different considerations. Why the YMCA and other businesses would be looking in this inner couplet, they call it, because the downtown actually does a couplet. The Business 51, which is a state route, goes around this couplet. Back in the 70s and before, it used to come right through the downtown. it was redone, the traffic patterns were redone to expand that downtown and provide a safer environment for businesses. And since that time though, this downtown Bloomington has fallen under disrepair, and so we're looking to revitalize that as a community. And this property can tie into that. So back to this. What we're looking at is how this ties in. The plan, the downtown strategic plan, looks at this block as a potential location for a parking garage, this property being one of them. So one other thing that we have to look at is, as this property became available, key stakeholders from the outside were reaching out to the city to try to find out, hey, what could we do in the meantime while the city is looking what to do with this block? And if we acquired that property, there was a lot of interest from some of the local near west property owners, community groups, on having an additional community garden. There's one in the area, but not very close. And so this community garden theoretically would provide some more buy-in, would get more people behind it. Now, what happened? What happened in this case, unfortunately, was we had administration for the city actually kind of drug its feet. We didn't move quickly, and we did not bring this issue to the council for consideration. And so in essence, this story is one of a missed opportunity. So I told you the story from the beginning, and now I kind of close the loop on it. And it's a missed opportunity because we didn't move forward quickly enough. The property owner ended up selling it and moving forward. So let's talk about class tie-in first with how does the class concepts that we just got through with organization dynamics tie into this story, and then we'll talk about next steps for potential consideration in the future for the city of Bloomington. So the one aspect that we have to consider is the political frame around this issue. We did not control the narrative. It is important to understand that there are key stakeholders working, and we call it that jungle kind of environment. There are key stakeholders working into this issue, working behind the scenes on our politicians. We have a city manager form of government, so there's a mayor and elected aldermen. They speak into that, of course. That's the way the political frame is. You cannot ignore the political frame with this issue because it drove the narrative. It actually caused some loss of power, and that's why I say using power carefully. It caused a loss of power by the city manager because of a failure to act under an already approved strategic plan. By that, you have to use power carefully with my intent, because when you don't use power carefully, actually it can be lost. Power is a commodity, so to speak. And so what you can do is conflict can either gain or lose power for you as a public administrator. You have to focus that outside conflict in a positive way and channel it obviously to your best advantage. The next facet that we need to consider is the symbolic frame, okay? So in this case, it could have very, very easily cast a vision of what is this property, what could it be for the downtown? What could this property be as it ties into the larger downtown vision? And so whenever you look at the symbolic frame, I think we lost as a city the opportunity to utilize this vision of what should this be. So what could that downtown look like? What benefits would there be for a community garden? Now, this symbolic frame and the political frame will tie into the next steps of what we could do in the future moving forward. And the last concept to talk about is just that organizational soul. So when you talk about the soul of the organization, perception is key. Now, whenever we tie in that human resource frame, that's that loving, caring component. The city did not come across in that way in this case because we missed that opportunity to really cast that larger vision, talk about how we can love and care for with the community garden, some of the needed stakeholders in the near west downtown. So let's talk about next steps. With next steps, what we have to do is I think we should consider a citywide land acquisition policy. And what that does is that allows for opportunistic acquisitions moving forward. And so by the council proactively taking steps and budgeting for potential acquisitions they don't even know about, it allows for administration and staff to free up long-term planning. With the understanding municipalities, the larger the municipality, the harder it is to be dynamic and flexible in an environment. So whenever you have a proactive land acquisition policy, it allows for quicker responses from staff. And then also cost threshold discussions. If some parameters are put into place before before these opportunities arise, staff can understand if it's appraised at a certain value, where does the council want to be on that payment? Don't let people gouge the city because they can't. What do we want? Do we want to be at 100%, nothing more than the appraisal cost? Do we want to be at 80%? Are we allowing it up to 120% under certain conditions? I think there needs to be some clear direction from our elected officials for that. City council prioritization. Limited resources. I think whenever we understand, how much money should go toward this, it has to tie into that larger picture of where the funding comes from and where it's going out to. Public meetings. We miss some opportunities in this. We need to be more strategic with our public meetings and get that stakeholder input. That ties in, as we talked about, with that political frame and the symbolic frame, that casting of the vision, and then also tying on to that, allowing that vision to drive the process. And it allows for that actually goes back to the concept of a bounded conflict. Whenever you start having the stakeholder meetings, you take away this jungle, unbounded kind of behind the scenes political frame, and you bind that conflict more into a constrained environment that you're not perfectly able to control, but better able to control. The next facet is revisiting the city master plans. Are we missing other opportunities? A master plan on the shelf is worthless. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on master plans, but if you don't implement them and have an implementation strategy, you miss opportunities. We have to make sure there's no other ones like that. In this case, if this is a priority for the city, this block has the potential for TIF redevelopment. So a proactive TIF study on the block should be considered in the future. So I do want to just go ahead and put up here the reference list that was given for and used for this material, the tying to the course and the like. And so again, my thanks as a professor for what you've done throughout this course, pushing us, allowing us to grow. Good opportunity. Hopefully you can see this strategic land acquisition theme through the story of 411 North Roosevelt and how it ties in to the overall class. Thank you very much for your time.